Hello everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm Paul, and today we are going to talk about a topic that many beginners are curious about.
Hello everyone, I'm Lena. Today's topic is about how to talk to a girl in English, especially when you don't know her.
Yes, many beginners feel nervous or shy in this situation.
That's true. But don't worry, with simple steps and polite behavior, anyone can start a conversation confidently.
So today we will share easy and practical tips.
Let's begin.
Lena, what is the first step?
The first step is to start with a polite greeting. First impressions are very important.
What can beginners say?
They can say simple things like, hello, hi, good morning.
That sounds easy.
Yes, always say it with a smile and a calm tone.
Lena, let's start from the very beginning. When someone wants to talk to a girl they don't know, what is the first and most important step?
The first step is always to start with a polite greeting. This is very important because it creates the first impression. A good and respectful start can make the conversation comfortable for both people.
So the way you start really matters.
Yes, absolutely. If you start politely, the other person feels safe and respected. But if you start in a rude or awkward way, the conversation may not go well.
That makes sense. So what kind of greetings can beginners use?
Beginners should use simple and common greetings. For example, hello, hi, good morning, good afternoon. These are easy to say and suitable in most situations. These are very basic but effective. Yes, and beginners don't need to use complicated sentences. A simple hi with a friendly tone is enough to start.
What about body language?
That's a very important point. While greeting, learners should smile, maintain a calm and friendly expression, speak in a soft and polite tone.
So it's not just about words, but also how you say them.
Exactly. Your tone and body language show your intention. A polite greeting with a smile makes the other person feel comfortable.
Many beginners feel nervous at this moment.
Yes, that's normal. But they should remember that confidence comes with practice. Even if they feel nervous, they should try to stay calm and speak slowly.
That's a helpful tip.
Another important thing is to respect personal space. Don't stand too close and don't make the other person uncomfortable.
That's very important, especially when talking to someone new.
Yes, and learners should also be ready to accept the other person's response. If the person is not interested in talking, they should politely step back.
So respect is the key.
Absolutely. A polite greeting is not just about starting a conversation. It's about showing respect, kindness, and good manners.
That's a great way to begin any conversation.
Yes, and once the greeting is done properly, the rest of the conversation becomes much easier.
Lena, after starting with a polite greeting, what should a beginner do next?
After greeting, the next step is to introduce yourself in a simple and respectful way. This helps the other person know who you are and makes the conversation more comfortable.
So introduction is very important.
Yes, absolutely. Without introducing yourself, the conversation may feel incomplete or awkward. A simple introduction builds trust and creates a friendly environment.
What kind of sentences can beginners use?
Beginners should use very simple sentences. For example, my name is Alex. I am new here. I just wanted to say hello. These sentences are easy and natural.
That sounds very easy to follow.
Yes, and learners should not try to impress with difficult words. The goal is to communicate clearly, not to sound perfect.
What about tone and body language here?
Just like greeting, introduction should also be calm, friendly, respectful. Maintain a soft tone and a slight smile.
Many beginners feel nervous while introducing themselves.
That's normal. But they should remember that simple introduction is enough. They don't need to say too much.
So keep it short and natural.
Exactly. Another important thing is to observe the other person's reaction. If they seem comfortable, you can continue. If not, you should respect that.
That's very important.
Yes, introduction is not just about speaking, it's about creating comfort and respect in the conversation.
Lena, after greeting and introducing yourself, how can a beginner continue the conversation?
The best way is to ask simple and polite questions. Questions help keep the conversation going and show that you are interested in talking.
So questions are very important.
Yes, but beginners should keep their questions simple, friendly, and respectful.
Can you give some examples?
Of course, beginners can ask, what is your name? Are you from here? Is this your first time here? These are basic and safe questions.
That makes conversation easier.
Yes, and learners should ask questions in a polite tone. The way you ask matters a lot.
What should they avoid?
They should avoid asking personal or uncomfortable questions in the beginning. Keep the conversation light and friendly.
That's very important for respect.
Exactly. Also, learners should listen carefully to the answer. Conversation is not just about speaking, it's also about listening.
So they should not interrupt.
Yes, let the other person speak. Then you can respond naturally.
That creates a smooth conversation.
Absolutely. Another tip is to ask follow-up questions. For example, if someone says they are new, you can ask, "Oh, how do you like this place?"
That makes the conversation more interesting.
Yes.
Lena, many beginners feel pressure to use advanced English when talking to someone new. They think they need to use big words to sound impressive. Is that necessary?
Not at all, Paul. In fact, the best approach is to keep the conversation simple. Simple English is always more effective, especially for beginners.
So using simple words is actually better?
Yes, absolutely. When you use simple words and short sentences, it becomes easier for both you and the other person to understand each other.
That makes the conversation smooth.
Exactly. The goal of communication is not to impress, but to express your thoughts clearly. Even basic sentences can create a good conversation.
Can you give some examples?
Yes, for example, "I like this place. It is a nice day. I enjoy talking to you." These are simple sentences, but they sound natural and friendly.
That's very helpful for beginners.
Yes, and beginners should not worry about grammar mistakes too much. If your sentence is simple, there is less chance of making mistakes.
That also builds confidence.
Exactly. Another important thing is to speak slowly and clearly. When you speak slowly, you get time to think, and the other person can understand you better.
So no need to rush.
Yes, take your time. Also, if you don't know a word, don't panic. You can try to explain it in another simple way.
That's a smart trick.
Yes, and remember, even native speakers use simple language in daily conversations, so keeping it simple is always a good idea.
Lena, what is the most important thing to remember while talking to a stranger?
The most important thing is to be polite and respectful. Good behavior matters more than perfect English.
So manners are more important than language skills?
Yes, absolutely. Even if your English is simple, being polite makes a very positive impression.
How can beginners show politeness?
They can use simple polite words like, "Please," "Thank you," "Excuse me." These small words make a big difference.
That sounds easy to follow.
Yes, and learners should also use a friendly tone of voice. Speaking softly and respectfully makes the other person feel comfortable.
What about behavior?
Behavior is very important. Learners should respect personal space, not interrupt while the other person is speaking. Listen carefully.
Listening is also part of respect.
Exactly. Good conversation is not just about talking, it's also about listening with attention.
What if the other person is not interested in talking?
That's very important to understand. If the person seems uncomfortable or not interested, learners should politely end the conversation.
So they should not force the conversation.
Absolutely. Respecting the other person's comfort is very important.
Lena, one of the biggest problems beginners face is nervousness. Many people feel shy or scared when talking to someone new, especially in English. How can they build confidence?
That's a very common problem, Paul. The most important thing to understand is that confidence does not come instantly. It comes slowly with practice and experience.
So it's normal to feel nervous in the beginning.
Yes, completely normal. Even people who speak good English sometimes feel nervous in new situations. The key is to start small and keep practicing.
What can beginners do to feel more confident?
They should start by practicing simple conversations at home. For example, they can speak in front of a mirror. Practice basic sentences. Imagine real-life situations.
That helps them prepare mentally.
Exactly. When you practice regularly, your mind becomes familiar with English and you feel more comfortable speaking.
Many learners are afraid of making mistakes.
Yes, but they need to change this mindset. Mistakes are a natural part of learning. Every mistake helps you improve.
So they should not fear mistakes.
Absolutely. Instead of worrying about mistakes, they should focus on communicating their thoughts.
That makes speaking easier.
Yes, and another important tip is to stay calm and speak slowly. When you rush, you make more mistakes and feel more nervous.
So speaking slowly builds confidence.
Exactly. Also, positive thinking helps a lot. Tell yourself, I can do this. I am improving every day.
That's very motivating.
Yes, confidence is built step by step. The more you practice, the more confident you become.
Lena, we have discussed all the important steps. Before we end, what final advice would you like to give to beginners?
I would say that the most important thing is to be simple, polite, and yourself. You don't need perfect English to have a good conversation.
That's a very important message.
Yes, and beginners should always remember that communication is more important than perfection. Even simple English can create a meaningful conversation.
That takes away a lot of pressure.
Exactly. Another important thing is to respect the other person's comfort. Always pay attention to their reactions and feelings.
So conversation should always be mutual.
Yes, absolutely. And if the conversation goes well, that's great. But if it doesn't, that's okay too. Not every conversation needs to be perfect.
That's a very balanced approach.
Yes, and learners should take every conversation as a learning experience. Each time you speak, you improve a little more.
That's very encouraging.
Also, don't compare yourself with others. Everyone learns at their own pace. Focus on your own progress.